Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, I'm inviting you to step out of your resume and into your real self as we redefine your story, because it's about who you are, not just what you've done. In a world obsessed with titles and accomplishments, we're exploring the depth of identity that extends far beyond a job title. Let's peel back the layers, laugh at our own career clichés, and reclaim the core traits that make us resilient, creative, and deeply human. We'll explore how your strengths, values, and patterns, not your latest promotion, are the real engines of your career and purpose. I'll walk you through simple, fun, yet soul-stirring exercises that coax out the traits that you might have tucked away. Ready for a journey back to you? Let's start with a bold idea. You are not your job. Now, before your inner overachiever starts to panic, this doesn't mean your work isn't important. It simply means it's not all of who you are. And yet, so many of us introduce ourselves by the title and the task. I'm a project manager. I work in healthcare. I run operations. We rarely say, I'm a creative problem solver, a compassionate truth teller, or someone who finds peace in helping others thrive. But that's who we really are. Our culture tends to equate identity with productivity. From the time we're kids, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not, who are you becoming? That question plants the seed that our value lies in output, not essence. But identity is far richer. It includes your values, your patterns, the way you naturally show up for people, and how you interpret the world around you. What energizes you? What makes you feel alive? These are the clues that point to your core identity, whether you're in the boardroom, the classroom, or between jobs. Let's go deeper. Psychologists call this narrative identity. It's the internal story we tell ourselves about who we are and why we matter. And here's the kicker. It's not just based on our accomplishments. It's shaped by the meaning we assign to those moments. Did you show courage in a difficult season? Did you pivot when things fell apart? Those aren't just resume gaps or achievements. They're identity anchors. If you've ever had a job loss, career shift, or even retirement, you may have felt that sudden, who am I now free fall. That's what happens when our identity is overly fused with our role. But what if instead we zoomed out and saw our careers as just one expression of who we are, not the whole story? That's what we're talking about today, helping you get reacquainted with yourself, not your skill set. Now that we've separated who you are from what you've done, let's dig in and explore this for ourselves. Don't worry, this isn't about rewriting your resume. This is about remembering who you are before you were so responsible. So take a deep breath. If you're able, close your eyes. Or if you're driving, please don't. Just listen along and let your imagination wander. Ready? Think back to a time in your life when you felt most you, not the version of you performing for a promotion or trying to be what someone else needed, but the real you. Maybe it was childhood, when you were building elaborate forts out of couch cushions and declaring yourself queen of the living room jungle. Or maybe it was college, that moment when you stayed up late, talking about life and dreams with someone who just got you. Or maybe it was last month when you helped a stranger, cracked a joke, or stood up for something that mattered. Ask yourself, what were you doing in that moment? Who are you with? And what part of you felt most alive? Now let's fast forward to your current day-to-day. When was the last time that version of you showed up? If the answer is, I'm not sure, don't beat yourself up. Life piles on expectations, and sometimes we forget the original blueprint. But trust me, it's still there. Like your favorite hoodie that somehow ended up at the back of the closet. Your authentic self is waiting to be put back on. Here's a fun thought experiment. Imagine meeting someone at a dinner party, and instead of asking, "What do you do?" they ask, "What kind of person are you?" How would you answer? Would you talk about your love of puzzles, your loyalty to your friends, your quick wit, or your calming presence? That's your essence. That's the stuff that travels with you, whether you're at the top of your game or just trying to make it through a Tuesday. If you're struggling to name those traits, look for patterns. What do people always come to you for? What compliments do you tend to brush off because it's just who I am? What moments make you lose track of time? Jot some of those down. These aren't filler words for your next LinkedIn update. They're the foundation of your identity. They're your through line. And the more aware you are of them, the more confidently you can bring you into every room, every relationship, and yes, even every resume. We've spent some time reflecting on who we are underneath the job titles, and now I want to bring in a fresh perspective and really drive this home. I found a great article on Psychology Today called "Stop Making Work Your Identity." It explores the subtle ways we start to believe our value is tied to what we do and how that belief can sneak into our self-worth, even into our relationships and our emotional well-being. Now, this isn't about throwing your job out the window or pretending work doesn't matter. Of course, it does. But this article invites us to reframe our relationship with work so that it supports who we are rather than swallows us whole. Let's break it down. Before we get into the key takeaways, here's a quick summary. One thing that makes us uniquely human is our deep desire to create meaning. And for many of us, that meaning is tied to our work. Over time, work has evolved from a basic exchange of skills to something far more personal. It doesn't just pay the bills anymore. It shapes our identity. Instead of simply doing work, we've become workers, often defining our worth by our performance, our title, or our professional reputation. Economist Arthur Brooks warns that this kind of self-objectification not only limits how we see ourselves, but also how others see us. That familiar question, "What do you do?" has become more than just small talk. It's often a stand-in for value and status. And when we tie our identity to our job, we risk losing a sense of who we are if that job ever goes away. The article goes on to highlight how our idea of meaningful work is often shaped by external forces. Many people want to make a positive impact, but when engagement is measured only in terms of enthusiasm, customer loyalty, or profitability, the focus shifts away from the individual purpose and toward organizational output. That shift increases burnout and leaves us wondering, is my identity just my commitment to a company? With that in mind, let's look at some of the core takeaways. What happens when we stop defining ourselves by our work? We may not be able to predict what will happen with our economy over the next few months, years, or decades. But something powerful shifts when you stop letting what you do define who you are. Here are a few of the possible outcomes. It turns opportunities for growth into actual opportunities. When what you do is your identity, it's hard to separate constructive criticism from what feels like a personal attack. When you separate the two, you're better able to focus on the content of the message and turn feedback into a productive opportunity to grow and get better. In a world where advancement is largely the responsibility of the individual, knowing how to seek out feedback and develop a growth mindset is critical. It changes artificial measures of success. When you no longer define who you are by what you do, you stop reaching for goalposts that don't actually exist. You're better able to stop, I feel successful when type of thinking. I'll feel successful when I get that promotion. I'll feel successful when I make as much money as my peers. I'll feel successful when I have a particular title. The goalpost always moves, and they've been set up to ensure that certain people never reach them. Those who will succeed in the future of work will define their own success and create their own goalposts. It makes change, even job loss, more bearable. Are you going to face a layoff next year? Possibly, possibly not. Your job is to do your homework and be as prepared as possible for whatever is to come. What is certain is that change is inevitable. You might lose your job, you might get a new manager, and your role may change completely. When your job is not your identity, you're better able to navigate these changes with adaptability and resilience, two key skills for the future of work. It diminishes disappointment when the work family goes away or doesn't live up to expectations. Related to the last point, there has been a move in the recent years to use the word family when describing work culture. As devastating as layoffs are for those who receive them, it's equally demoralizing for those who are left behind, no longer able to trust that the culture will protect them. When you separate who you are from what you do, you're better able to see work for what it really is. It's not your family, your reason for being, and it doesn't define your worthiness in this world. It's just work. Don't let it matter more than that. So let's make sure we got it. Work can add meaning, but it shouldn't define your meaning, right? When your identity is overly fused with your job, every high and low at work hits harder. Promotions feel like personal validation. Mistakes feel like personal failures. I like how this article encourages us to decouple the two. Your job is something you do, not something you are. And when your role shifts, your value doesn't. Your identity can feel fragile after a layoff, career pivot, or retirement, especially if we've let our sense of self get too wrapped up in our role. But your personality, strengths, and values don't retire with your business cards. Just remember that. Feedback becomes easier when identity isn't on the line. We learned that if you're not tying your self-worth to your performance, you're way more open to feedback, because then it's about growth, not judgment. Instead of chasing promotions or salary goals because they should matter, Identify what truly fulfills you. Maybe it's flexibility, creativity, or impact, not a bigger title. Just because society thinks that's your next step doesn't mean it is. You get to define your next step. You can love your job and be a great parent, a loyal friend, a volunteer, an artist, an introverted birdwatcher. Your identity is a rich mosaic, not a single job description. So, now that we've opened the lid and peeked inside, what do we do with this fresh awareness of who we are beyond our job? It's one thing to say, my work doesn't define me, and another thing entirely to live like that's true. This is about real-world steps, gentle nudges, not grand gestures. It's going to help you start operating from identity instead of occupation. Let's start small. Rewrite your personal about me statement. Not the polished LinkedIn version, but the honest human one. Begin with something like, I am someone who, ... and don't include your job title. Think about the traits you want people to feel when they're around you. Maybe it's, I'm someone who listens deeply, notices the details, and finds the humor in tough situations. That's a strong foundation, and one that shows up whether you're leading a meeting, cooking dinner, or navigating a hard conversation. Next, give yourself permission to explore identity-affirming activities outside of work. This might look like reconnecting with a hobby you let go of when things got busy, volunteering somewhere that feeds your soul, spending more time with people who love you for you, not what you do. These aren't time wasters. They're identity builders. They remind you that you're multidimensional and still growing. Also, try creating distance between you and your role by changing the language you use. For instance, instead of saying, I'm a teacher, try, I teach. Or even better, I help people discover new ideas and reach their potential. That subtle shift reclaims your agency. Your role is something you do with who you are. And finally, let's talk about boundaries. When we over-identify with our work, we tend to say yes to everything because each task feels like a personal responsibility. But when you start from a clear sense of self, you can choose commitments that align with your values and then decline those that don't without guilt. That's how identity becomes your compass. The bottom line, you don't need to quit your job or overhaul your life to make this shift. Just start showing up more as you and less as your title. That's how to build a career and a life that fits you, not the other way around. So maybe now you're thinking, okay, I'm ready to reconnect with myself, but where do I even begin? That's a great question, and you're not alone. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in our responsibilities that we forget what even lights us up anymore. That's why I found this next article really refreshing. It's called How to Find Your Passion Outside of the Workplace. It's from the Good Men Project, and it offers some gentle, inspiring ideas for rediscovering joy, curiosity, and yes, even yourself outside of your job description. And the writer is in his 20s when endless possibilities really felt achievable. There's no way I'm coming back. This one thought echoed at the end of my 2021-2022 school year, and it continues to reverberate even today. That year had been the worst year of my life when it came to being in the classroom. I didn't have another year in me. It wasn't until later that I realized teaching pays incredibly well compared to a lot of other entry-level jobs, and we weren't in any financial position to quit. In other words, enduring a year or 2 or 3 of this job needed to happen until I found something that worked better for me, until I found my passion. Being passionate doesn't start with your career. Most people aren't passionate about their careers at all. You might meet a few people who absolutely love what they do as a hired employee, but most of us couldn't care less about the job we have. The truth is that passion was never meant to be found at work. And if our passions are meant to be outside of the job we have, how do you find them? My wife and I struggled with this for the last few years, but here's what has helped the most. Crack one open. Reading has been an escape in so many ways. When I was a kid, I'd imagine myself in the books that I read, becoming a superhero or riding a dragon or traveling on the Hogwarts Express. We use books to escape the very okay world around us. But why does that stop after we become adults? Why are adults only allowed to read nonfiction and figure out who they are and how to start a business once they're done with childhood? People are sick of the place they find themselves stuck in on Earth, and they need to find escape found only inside a narrative. Reading gives us both hobby and community. My wife started a new book series and author based on a recommendation from her friend, and now she and that friend get to read and reflect together. Can nonfiction still create the strike of lightning needed to revive passion? Yes. I recently read Eric Thomas's You Owe You on Audible, and it was all the encouragement I needed to keep on writing and not give up. I owe it to myself to do so. At least, that's what the book convinced me of. All books shine hope, even inside our sometimes mediocre jobs. Slowly unravel. Sometimes escapism doesn't work, though. It's only temporary, and we need something that is a permanent fix to the fact that our boss doesn't care about us. I found it helps to share my struggles with someone else. This doesn't mean just gripe and complain. It means unloading and unraveling yourself so that someone else can help you put the pieces of your puzzle together. It goes without saying that you should only do this with someone you trust. A parent, a partner, a close friend, a therapist. But the premise is to go into the conversation saying that you're feeling stuck and talk through possible ideas of how to get unstuck. Often with me, when I stop writing, there's a block outside of writing that's stopping me. I might be feeling overwhelmed about the state of the house or disappointed in my progress or worried about a project at work. Ultimately, it's my passion that's stopping me from pursuing it. The source lies elsewhere. And when my wife notices me in a funk, talking through my emotions helps me regain focus and allows my passion to spring up like a shoot of bamboo. Dive into the deep end. As someone in their mid-20s, it surprises me how many people lack real passion. They just stumble through each day, desperate to make it to the next in one piece. People need to dive into hobbies that bring them back to a point of exploration and happiness. For me, that can mean diving into my writing, but it can also mean diving into a new game with puzzles to unravel and levels to beat. Find a hobby worth your time and create fun in your bland world. Hobbies allow us to be the boss of our own lives. You're in control of how much fun you have and how much energy you bring to the table. However, hobbies come with an unexpected piece. They can sometimes be frustrating and costly. My advice is to find something you're interested in or always wanted to do. do research, and start small. There are a lot of people who try to turn their passion into money. In fact, there are plenty of people on the internet who will convince you that you should be trying to make money with whatever you do on the side. I know, I used to be one of them. Until I realized that sometimes you just need a passion, and it doesn't need to make you money, at least in the beginning. Making money is a natural occurrence over time. Take crocheting as an example. Some people start crocheting for fun, just to have something to do in their spare time outside of work. But maybe you crochet a hat for a family member, and other family members are interested. You realize you have a talent at this thing, and you've been doing it on the side for kicks. And then, because you want to get some kind of reward for all your hard work, you start to ask for a payment. Now you crochet hats on the side and make a few $100s a month. Natural progression. Or, like me, you crochet all year long and then you sell it at Christmas time. What are you going to do with your passion when it starts loading up in your spare room? Forcing this natural progression will cause you to immediately lose interest in your passion project and turn against it. Don't let it happen. Have fun. Let the money come later. I've heard it said that passion is like a fire because it needs to be cared for in order to grow. In that case, it's like a lot of things: a puppy, a plant, or a Tamagotchi. Care for your passions. Don't allow the initial spark to go out. Don't give up on your passion because it isn't as easy as you thought. Look for ways to care for it as if it were a growing plant. And over time, you'll find yourself in awe of how much it has grown. And maybe, just maybe, you use the passion to start making a little extra cash. But if you don't, at least you have a fire inside of you that no dull job could ever put out. And to me, that's worth a little more than money. I like how this article gently reminds us that our deepest passion may not align with our job title. And you know what? That's okay. Work may fulfill some needs, like money and income, but joy often comes when we tap into self-expression outside of the 9-to-5. What did you love doing before adult obligations kicked in? Sometimes that's things we dismiss as hobbies, the quirky small joys, but they're clues to what makes us feel alive. Take some mini adventures, join a class, pick a creative project, try journaling in nature, or sign up for a community meetup. These explorations may spark unexpected joy and reconnection. And finding passion isn't about instant clarity. It's about small experiments. Even failed attempts teach you more about what resonates and what doesn't. Anytime you need it, you can recharge yourself through self-care practices, take restful breaks, and create nurturing boundaries. Your inner spark is easier to find when your mind and body feel safe, grounded, and heard. Let's slow it down. You've listened, reflect, maybe even shifted your thinking a little. Now it's time to take all of that insight inward. With a pen, a quiet space, and a little honesty. Journaling is such a powerful tool for self-discovery because it invites you to be your own guide. No pressure, no filters, just truth, curiosity, and care. Here are a few prompts to help you reconnect with who you are, not just what you do. And these are just the beginning. If this resonates with you, be sure to download the 5-day journaling companion in the show notes. Who am I outside of what I do for work? What qualities show up in every area of my life, career, relationships, hobbies? If someone described me without using my job title, what would they say? When do I feel most like myself? What brings me alive? What activities make me lose track of time? When was the last time I felt truly excited or deeply peaceful? What was I doing before life got busy and I might want to revisit? What patterns keep showing up in my story? Are there traits or strengths I've relied on across different seasons of life? What do people consistently count on me for? What challenges have I overcome? And what does that say about who I am? How has work shaped me, for better or worse? Have I let my job define too much of my self-worth? What habits or beliefs about success have I adopted that no longer serve me? These prompts aren't just questions on a page. They're invitations to come home to yourself. So, take your time. Be honest and let your own words remind you of who you've always been. Your story is unfolding, and you get to decide what's next. We've talked a lot about identity today. Who we are underneath the roles, beyond the responsibilities, and outside of our job titles. But what happens when life delivers a curveball so big that it knocks the wind out of the identity altogether? When you're no longer sure who you are, what you want, or where you're headed? That's the heart of this next clip from Diane Morgan. She speaks candidly about how major life changes can lead to a loss of self, but also how they can create a powerful opportunity to rediscover who you really are. Whether you've recently experienced a transition or you just feel like something's shifted inside of you, her message is an affirming reminder. You are not lost. You're simply being invited to reconnect. Let's take a listen.
Have you ever felt like you've lost yourself after a major life change? Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or a serious health issue, you know it's easy to feel like your identity has been shattered. But what if I told you that this could also be a perfect opportunity to rediscover who you truly are and build a life that lights you up? Now stay with me and let's dive into how you can regain a sense of self and thrive no matter what life throws at you. I'm Diane Morgan. Welcome to Nourish and Flourish, and this is a channel where midlife women come to heal, thrive and live fully. So today we're talking about something so many of us struggle with: losing our sense of identity. This is a topic that touches so many aspects of our lives, and I'm here to help you navigate through it and come out the other side stronger. So this week, I've been reflecting on the significance of identity. You know, it's interesting how we often define ourselves by the roles we play, the stories we tell ourselves, and the labels we wear. Whether it's what we do for a living, the relationship we're in, or the successes we've achieved. But what happens when something in our life changes dramatically? That's when our sense of identity can be shaken to its core. Losing a loved one, going through a breakup, facing financial hardship, dealing with serious health issues. These are all moments that can strip away the identity we've held on to. Suddenly we're left with an empty space where that identity used to be, and it can feel like the ground has been pulled from under us. And this can lead to anxiety, depression, social isolation, and loss of self-confidence. When you lose a relationship, for example, you might feel like you've lost a part of yourself, especially if your identity was deeply tied to being a wife, husband, or parent. This can be a traumatic process. You might find yourself questioning, who are you now that your role has changed? And if you've been in a toxic relationship, the damage can be even more profound. You might not recognize the strong, confident person you once were, and you're left wondering how you allowed yourself to be treated that way. Or maybe you've lost a spouse, someone who was your confidant, your partner in crime, and the one you shared your dreams and fears with. Without them, you might feel raw, vulnerable, and unsure of who you are now. I remember when my mum, dad, and brother all died within 8 months of each other. Suddenly, I felt abandoned, like I'd lost my anchor to my past. My identity as a daughter, as part of that family unit, felt shaken. It was as if the person I was had been altered forever, and I was left wondering, who am I now? And losing a job can have a similar effect. Your work often provides structure, purpose, and a sense of identity, and when that's taken away, it can leave you feeling lost and uncertain about your future. Look at health issues. They can also strip away your sense of self. When you're suddenly unable to do the things that you've always done, whether it was working, driving, or just going about your daily routine, it can be incredibly disorientating. And you start reflecting on your life and wonder, how did I get there? And of course, divorce is another major life change that can cause a loss of identity. It's not uncommon to feel like you've failed as you struggle with the emotional and legal process. And if you're in midlife and your children are leaving home and your marriage is ending, well, the combined loss of those roles as a mother and a wife can be overwhelming. But whatever you're going through, it's important to know that your feelings are a normal and natural response to major life changes. And it's okay to feel confused, unsettled, and even scared. But it's also an opportunity to rediscover yourself and build a new identity, one that reflects who you are now. So how do you cope with this loss of identity? Well, here are a few things you can start to do right now. First off, reflect on your past. Think about what you loved to do before the change. What brought you joy? Where did you feel most alive? Do the things still interest you now? Reinvent yourself. This is a chance to explore new hobbies, passions, and interests. Maybe you've always wanted to volunteer, or you love being in nature. Now is the time to dive into these activities. But remember to take it slow, as this is a process and you don't have to figure it out overnight. Take your time to explore what truly matters to you right now. And of course, remember to address any unfinished business, because to move forward, it's crucial to deal with any emotional baggage from the past. And this could be unresolved feelings or unmet expectations that are holding you back. And I have a program that can help you identify what's emotionally incomplete and create a space for you to let go and heal. So regaining your identity and moving forward means taking action to complete any unfinished business related to a loss so that it no longer controls you. After all, it's about your life, your health, and your happiness. So, thank you for joining me today on Nourish and Flourish. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need it. And if you're ready to take the next step in your healing journey, then check out my program, which I'll link below. So until next time, remember, you have the power to heal and thrive.
If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Check out the show notes for the 5-day journaling companion and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you, stop leading with what you've done and start rediscovering who you truly are. Reconnect with the traits, values, and passions that make you, you, and let those shine in everything you do. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear.